Hi everybody, welcome to Mailbag Monday for March 25th, 2019. Today's email comes from Ann Bowman, and she writes, "Thanks for all the theory stuff and please keep it coming, but this question concerns pull-offs. If one was to pull off from fret 4 to fret 3 and then pull off from 3 to 2, would one have placed all three fingers before commencing the pull-offs? Or would one place 3 as one was pulling it off from 4, and then place 2 as one was pulling off from 3? I've tried the latter and think that I'm tending to end up with the note I'm pulling off to, for example the 3, and it's perhaps sometimes a little sharp, as the string has been pulled a bit by the pull-off finger coming off of 4, as the finger for 3 is coming down. Is it just a matter of working on the timing of the almost simultaneously placing and pulling off, or is placing before the first pull-off the best way to counter a slight sharping problem? Hope it's possible to decipher my somewhat convoluted explanation of the problem. Thanks again, Ann, and thank you, Ann, once again for your email. So I'll address this as a string side up sort of situation. So many people out there may not know how a pull-off or a hammer-on or any of those things work, and then I'll kind of build it from there, because I think it's all about finesse, and I think it's all about the situation and pre-thinking things just a little bit. So the first thing we've got here is we've got a hammer-on and we've got a pull-off. A hammer-on is where you go from one note to another and you actually hammer down just to the left of the fret. Now you can do that by plucking. I'm plucking with my right hand here. And then that sustain is allowing me to get a nice good sound with the hammer-on. Or you can hammer on without plucking first. You won't get as much of a tone by doing that, but as long as you're just to the left of the fret will be there, and you striking down to the left of that fret will make the fret work as a reverse hammer, and it'll actually kick into that note. Now you can do just a hammer-on to one note, or you can do them in sequence. Of course, you know, with you striking the strings, that is sort of helping keep the sustain going. At the same time, that sustain is still going to experience a decay over a certain amount of time there. So you do have a law of diminishing returns with that. It's also how many fingers you can get laid out in a row. If you're quick enough, you can get a lot of stuff going on in that span of time. So that is a hammer-on. The reverse is a pull-off right here. Now a pull-off's a bit different in that with the hammer-on, you're just going to go plunk right down on the string. With a pull-off, you can just lift your finger off the string very quickly, and you will hear a sound, but that's not going to give you an adequate sound for some of the effects we're looking to create when we use a pull-off. So what you actually want to do is you want to pull off above the note that you want to sound. So if we want to sound that note at the first fret, I'm going to pull off from the second fret and sound it. Notice how I take my finger and I'm pulling it. I'm pulling it backwards. So I'm plucking the string basically. And that is sounding that note there. It is not sounding the note at the second fret where I began. If I wanted that, then I'd have to pull off somewhere higher. With my thumb, I can pull off from the third fret and sound 2. And then from 2, I can sound 1. And then from 1, I can sound 0. Hammer-ons and pull-offs are ways of playing legato, and that means playing without picking. You want those notes to run into each other, and if you have a passage that is going to be helped by being nice and smooth, then a hammer-on and a pull-off is a great way of doing that. So I can do combinations, hammer-on and pull-off, all day long just by doing this. And it's a great exercise, and if you want to get your fingers used to doing the hammer-on pull-off combination, a good way to do that is to go here in the first 3 fret area in the first 3-fret range, and go 3, 2, 1, open on all the strings using different sets of fingers. You can actually sound, by preparing yourself to come in to do the pull-offs, you're hammering on, and basically the note that's going to stick out is the highest pitched note out of the 3 fingers. You're not going to hear those fingers back there, of course. So you're actually going to be able to hammer on the 3 and then pull off 2, 1, and open. And try that again. And then you can try them with different finger combinations as well. And some of those will work better than others for different types of hammer-ons and pull-offs, and in different areas up and down the fretboard. You can also do a walk-up and do the hammer-on just at the bottom, at the first fret, and then practice that with the different finger arrangements as well. And then do the pull-off. Good exercise for just getting the muscle memory in place and getting used to working those first 3 fret areas there. Now, as far as putting your fingers down all at once or just trying to do it as you go along, there's nothing that says you can't do both. But I like to have all my fingers in place and ready to go. So what you might need to do is work with how much force you're applying to the strings, and make sure that your fingers are as close to the left of the fret as possible. You'll get the best sound that way. And if you're doing that, and if you don't have to exert a lot of strength, you may not have any issue with that string going out of tune, or that note going out of tune for whatever reason. So if you're coming from, say, 4 to 3, 3 to 2, I'm led to believe or question, and if you're using the right gauge strings, you might want to go with a heavier gauge string that'll be a bit more resistant to pressure, and that'll give you a better intonation. And that is one of the #1 problems I think a lot of people have with being in tune when they're playing. It's not that the strings are not keeping their tune, but rather that the strings don't have enough proper tension. They don't have enough resistance, so that if you treat that string a little heavier than, say, you would the bass string, because we have the most amount of tension on the melody string, and then the bass string is second, and then the middle string is the least. So sometimes we get that middle string and it's just really flabby compared to the other two. Yet when we put our fingers down with the same amount of force, it's that middle string that will suffer because it's being sharpened. It's actually being pushed down a little bit more than the other strings are, because there's more tension involved with the melody and the bass string. When you're tuned in DAD, when you're tuned in DAA, then it tends to go, the melody string and the middle string both tend to end up going a little sharp if you lay on them a bit too hard. And my answer to that is to bump up the gauge to where everything feels the same, or the feel is the same across all 3 string courses. So I'd experiment with your touch as far as how hard you're actually coming down for this. And if that touch is not working, then bumping the gauge of the string that seems to be having the most problem with the getting sharpened. And bump that gauge up and see if that helps out with that problem, and then also make sure it doesn't create any additional problems while you're strumming, picking, and doing otherwise everything else on the fretboard. So I hope that has been a help, and thank you again for your email. And to everybody else, if you've got any questions for Mailbag Monday, don't hesitate to drop me a line at bingfutch@yahoo.com. Until next Monday, y'all, we'll see you soon.